A thick fog hides a story that will forever change the way you think about betrayal and karma. Today, we reveal to you the deeply hidden truth about a woman whose betrayal lasted many years until life turned against her in the cruelest way possible. I have read many stories here and know the reactions of many, especially men, and their attitudes toward cheating. And almost all of them say that cheating is not forgiven or forgiven, but once. And if he forgives more than that, it's either a sucker, stupid, a fool, or a sick pervert. That's what I thought too, until I saw otherwise, and experienced it with my own eyes. I lost my mother early. I was 12 years old when she died. Cancer drank every last drop of her. My father started drinking. My aunt helped as much as she could. Then he brought another woman with a child, and I became a stranger in my own house. When I was 15, I was abused by a string of stowaways. They dragged me into a car outside a club. My friend managed to escape, and they did whatever they wanted to me. I did not report it to the police. It's a small town. They shut me up with their fingers. I was afraid to tell my father. He'd say it was my fault. They were never found. They never came to see us after that. I got a bit withdrawn after that for a while. The truth is, something didn't break you either. Many years later, when I was sitting in a wheelchair and I talked to a psychologist, she explained to me that abuse affects all people differently. Some become frigid, and for them intimacy is like something scary, while others then, on the contrary, go to pieces. So I got into chef school. While I was studying, I dated different guys. As a rule, they were older than me, naturally, with all the consequences. I even had a medical abortion once. People were already whispering behind my back. I'll tell you right off the bat, I'm not a drug addict or an alcoholic. I've never tasted anything stronger than wine and beer in my entire life. I've always been well-groomed and never put on too much makeup. But I did not walk around as pale as a novice in a parochial school either. I always had a strict style, both in my makeup and in my clothes. I didn't let anyone near me after that first time I got pregnant. The doctor warned me that a couple more abortions, and I wouldn't be able to have children at all. And I wanted a family and children. I dreamed of marrying well. Otherwise, I could feel the quagmire dragging me deeper and deeper. I hoped it would help. I would calm down, and now this occasion came up. I met my future husband during a pre-graduation internship. The guy had just graduated and was doing an internship. He was good-looking, straight, positive, with a mild character, but most importantly, promising and from a good family. To say that I immediately fell in love with him? Believe me, that's nothing to say. But I liked him. Within a week, I glued him and dragged him into bed, where I put all his talent and all his skills. He came to my graduation. He congratulated me on my graduation and suddenly made me a proposal, to which, of course, I immediately agreed. 3 months later, we got married. There was a big wedding, and we left for another city. For the first 5 years, I was about a loving and faithful wife, a model housewife, a first-class mother. During that time, my husband got a solid job. We got a nice apartment, a car, and we had a daughter. What did I lack? I don't know. I was pissed off. Most likely, he loved me immensely and still does, and I just let him love me. Intuitively, he was something average, though he suited me just fine. I did not set out to cheat on him, and was not looking for adventure and variety, of course, on the side. The first time it was spontaneous. He disappeared for days at work. Often there were even business trips. The branches, the companies where he worked, were scattered not only all over Germany, but also abroad. He did not always take me with him to corporate parties and meetings. I was jealous, although I was sure that he had never cheated on me. On this unfortunate day, he had to go away for a couple of days. We had a big fight before that. I told the nanny that I would be staying with a friend, that I would get an extra bonus if she covered for me, and I went to have coffee myself. And then one of the ex-boyfriends I used to date when I was a student came over to my table. Yeah, he was a real hustler, but a total ladies' man. Both screamed with excitement of meeting. How many years had passed? He noticed my wedding ring. He had one just like it. I told him I had a daughter and he had a family and a son. He offered champagne to meet me. We drank, reminisced, and then it was on. I don't remember how we ended up in the hotel, but I wanted to. And I did not think about my conscience at that time. And as I realized later, he hadn't lost his bed skills. I called my husband from the hotel after what had happened and found out that he was still away. My conscience tormented me terribly. Treason is like a crime. The first time is always shameful, scary, and embarrassing. Although I cheated on all my boyfriends in the black, but it's different to cheat on my husband, the father of my child. That's different. On the phone, I apologized to him for the crap I had said to him. I told him that I loved him very much and that I was waiting for him. The friend of my youth slipped me his card and said that if I thought of going on, I could call him. After that, we went out a couple of times, and then everything stopped on my own initiative. And then I wanted all new sensations. Conscience constantly began to fade. Bed life with her husband became somewhat monotonous, boring. And my husband annoyed me more and more every day. My quarrels became more frequent. I decided that it was because of boredom. When I got married, I never worked. My husband provided and supported the family completely. We never needed anything. My daughter was placed in a kindergarten. I didn't really want to work as a cook. I went to study to be a stylist. I had another affair on the side, which lasted 6 months. He was the head of security at one of the banks. I fought my husband off as best I could. Did he have any idea? I don't know. My lover was just a machine, nothing more. With him, there was nothing to talk about, and gradually my butterflies began to subside in relation to him. And when I met, as it seemed to me at that time, a new love, I even broke off relations with him. He was the manager of a small cafe where I went for coffee after work. The bartender didn't have change, and he told me to put it on his tab. A relationship began. Repeatedly he offered to move in with him, but I just couldn't get my act together. The baby took a back seat, not to mention my husband. I was not hiding from my husband, and when everything was revealed, I accused him of all mortal sins, of the lack of attention, of the fact that with him I stopped feeling like a woman, that I was tired of everything. Now I remember, and I just want to spit in my face. I called my lover and told my husband that I loved someone else and was leaving him. I will not describe the whole scene. Let's just say that he was crying and begging, and I just laughed at him in the shower and comforted him a little. I said that everything is solved. I will pick up my daughter later. For 2 months he was walking around, persuading me to come back, saying that he loved me, that he would forgive me, and he did come back. First of all, my prince on a white horse was only a horse. Pathological jealous and paranoid, and even stingy to boot. Yes, and my husband was sorry. So many years we lived. It was obvious that he loves me and suffers, began to resemble his own shadow. We have not yet filed for divorce. I felt sad without my daughter. I realized that the fairy tale was over. That day my husband brought his daughter to see her and again began to persuade her to go back. I lightly embraced him, and at that moment my roommate jumped out and fisted my husband. He wasn't even ashamed of his child. I got between them and him, almost scratched his eyes out. I whispered to them to wait for me in the car here in the driveway. I got up, quickly gathered my things. I still remember how funny and ridiculous I looked, weaving to the car, swaying from side to side and dragging my suitcase. At home my daughter was put to bed, and then we had conjugal duty with my husband. I caressed him passionately, hotly, and most importantly, deeply. In between, I cried and begged forgiveness, but I only lasted a year. When I was tempted to go out again, I decided not to cheat on my husband. I calmly talked to him, told him that he was a wonderful man, and that I was not worthy, and did not want to torment him any more. That he has been through so much pain because of me, and I really want him to be happy, which he deserves, but I can't give him that, unfortunately. He can see his daughter whenever he wants and communicate with her. I won't restrict him. During this time, I became the administrator of a cosmetic salon and already earned good money, became independent and self-sufficient. I left, rented an apartment, and filed for divorce. This happened literally 3 days before the divorce proceedings. I had a new beau and he and I were going back to parties. It was a day off at the time, and my daughter was at my husband's house. My hubby had been drinking heavily and in that state got behind the wheel, despite my entreaties to call a cab. In short, he lost control, drove into the oncoming lane, and the most disgusting thing was that he framed my side. The only thing I remember was a sharp pain all over my body and darkness. When I opened my eyes, all I could see was white light, the ceiling of the hospital. After a while, I came to my senses and was able to speak and hear. A friend of mine appeared in the intensive care ward and told me that everything was not so bad, that I was being prepared for an operation. And if it is not done in time, then I will never be able to walk again. I asked him how he was, my lover. My friend told me that he only got away with scratches. During that time, he had only been to the hospital once. I told him he was more concerned about his car and his ass. And I had to assume that all my lovers forgot I existed in the blink of an eye. I heard my husband's voice in the hallway. He and the doctor were talking about something. He came in, asked me how I was. I told him I'd been better, and I asked him why he was here. He said everything would be all right. He had made arrangements for the surgery and the rehabilitation, and not only would I walk, I'd dance, and I told him to go away and not to bring his daughter here yet. He walked out and a friend came in. She asked me why I was doing that to him. He talked his parents into selling his dead grandmother's apartment, and he got into loans. Surgery and treatment don't come cheap. But doesn't she understand that I'm ashamed? And not just ashamed, I just disgust myself. And why am I not dead? A bitch like me has no right to live. And the fact that he cares so much about me makes me feel even more like a bastard. I told him I can't see him. I can't look him in the eye, that I only want one thing, to die, and that would be better for everyone. My friend calmed me down. The operation was a success, and I was sent by a special flight to a sanatorium in the Crimea for rehabilitation. After that, my husband took me home. Now I am still in a wheelchair. I can move by myself with a lot of effort. The doctors say that I will be able to walk soon, but my limp will probably stay, and a support cane may become my eternal companion. On weekends, I often ask my husband to take me to church. Sometimes I stay there for 3 hours at a time. I've begun to look at my husband with entirely different eyes. As a holy man, my daughter is always there for me. Though I understand myself that I did not deserve happiness, and I only deserved what happened to me, a psychologist comes in often. Again, my husband provided, and my husband surrounded me with care and affection. He says he won't let me go anywhere. Where would I go, and more importantly, with what? And at first, I even snapped at him. It seemed to me, I said, that he was doing it all for me, so that my conscience would torment me even more, or he was just crazy. Now I sit in a wheelchair and in front of the computer. I have a lot of time now. Dear listener, do you think she got what she deserved? Or was it just a coincidence?
Did you think you knew your partner best? Think again. Today, I'm going to tell you a story that will fundamentally change the way you think about love, betrayal, and imminent karma. My wife is my rock, my soulmate, but what I discovered made me question everything. I came across this picture by accident. My wife had been traveling a lot for 4 years on business. I was left alone for weeks at a time. I spent many lonely hours watching adult movies online. That's where I found it. There was no need to see her face. Her vintage wedding favor was quite unique. Her late mother's wedding ring on her fingers only added proof. The necklace was her last Christmas present from me. Sandra doesn't use birth control. We only see each other 10 days a month. We haven't had intercourse in 2 months. My rage was almost complete. Using my extensive computer skills, I found the same picture on 3 different adult websites. And the original one was on a dating site looking for friends. My life was over. I called her, but there was no answer on her cell phone or Skype. I called her hotel, but her phone number went unanswered. I started calling her coworkers who were supposed to be with her, but they all denied knowing her whereabouts. I sent her an email to follow up on my crazy voicemails to get in touch with me. A family emergency, a matter of life and death. After 30 minutes of no response, I asked her hotel to send someone to her room. 10 minutes later, my cell phone rang. Hey, honey, what's wrong? Check your email. I pressed send and forwarded her picture. Oh my God. Don't say another word. Pack up your stuff and get on a plane tonight. Honey, I can't. If you're afraid of losing your job, don't worry, just pack your things and come back here in a few hours. I can't. I'm sending a photo to all your work contacts. What? The morality clause in your employment contract. You won't have your precious job by 8 o'clock in the morning. Get on the fucking plane. I hung up the phone and started getting ready for her arrival. At 8:05, I received a text message from her CEO. He informed me that my wife was immediately fired and apologized for her behavior, discrediting her, our marriage, and the company. He bluntly stated, she will never hold a position like that again. I can't hold back from laughing at this columnist drill. At 8:15, I called her directly to voicemail. I saw that I had a message with the details of her flight. I ordered an Uber to pick her up and bring her home. At 10:10, she came to the front door. I wonder what her first thoughts were when the key didn't work. She rang the bell and I waited a few minutes before opening the door. Please, honey, let me explain. Her gaze slid around the living room. All of her things were neatly stacked in a box. Sit down, you bloody cunt. Sandra sat in silence. No tears, no sign of remorse. What a bitch. You can stay here long enough to clean up your shit. You won't leave this room, you won't talk to me. No explanation is possible. So make some phone calls and get out of my house. You must want to know why. I went to the kitchen and poured myself another cup of coffee. Leave your rings on the side table. Now that you mention it, I wonder what your fucking mother would think of you now. A sob could be heard from the next room. Didn't care. If the doorbell rings, open it. It'll beat for you. Yes, there was that sound again, a definite sob. Tears at last, though I'm sure she didn't shed them because of our marriage. As if on cue, the doorbell rang. Sander opened it and saw his father. His eyes burned with righteous fire. I heard a slap from the other side of the house. From now on, you have no family. Live on the street. That's how whores like you survive. Right? Dad, please. Your mother would have died if she'd heard about this. Thank God she's already gone. As we speak, your sister is cutting you out of our lives. No one will lift a finger to help you. He turned and walked away. I know his heart was torn apart. I heard Sandra sit back in her chair. The uncontrollable crying was almost music to my ears. About 20 minutes later, the bell rang again. I didn't even move to answer it. I heard her get up and drag herself to him. Father Mike, I'm not Sandra White. I am here to inform you that as of this moment, you are banned from all parish activities, including confession. From what I know, I will be meeting with the Archbishop to draw up a bull of excommunication. But, Father, Mike closed the door himself. I don't know how long she lay at the door. Frankly, I didn't care. Every sob felt like a breath rushing into my lungs. Every scream was a jolt to my heart. After finishing my coffee, I walked to the door and saw Sandra still lying there. I bent down, picked her up in my arms, and led her to the couch. I carefully laid her down and stared at the woman I had once loved. There was nothing there now. No love, no hate, just emptiness. Sandra Nicole Dean White, your career is ruined. Your family has disowned you. Your church has abandoned you. Can you say your life is over now? She lay staring into space. She was broken beyond measure. For a few minutes, nothing seemed to move in her. Then followed a simple, "Yes." "That's all right then. Sandra, now tell me, did you sleep with another man last night?" "Yes." "Did you sleep with a man every night you traveled?" "Yes." "Did you ever use a condom?" "No." "How come you haven't gotten pregnant?" "I have a diaphragm." "No, answer me this, Sandra. Why?" "Because I didn't have you." "Are you kidding me?" It took me a while to get my rage under control. I got up and walked around the house for about an hour before returning to the living room. "Before you, I had other lovers. The first time you and I slept together, we made love. Deep, strong, meaningful love. It had never happened to me before. The months leading up to my promotion were the happiest of my life. Then I had to travel so much. It was killing me to be away from you. I needed you, your touch, your love. I missed you so much that I started doing terrible things to fill the void. And then I couldn't stop. Crap, why didn't you ever say anything to me? We were trying to save up to have a baby. We needed my income so badly. I couldn't give up until we saved up enough for me to stop working. So you were lonely and selfish. Did you ever wonder what I was doing while you were gone 3 weeks of every month? I tried not to think about how lonely you were. I tried to drown out my guilt with all that. Oh my God, honey, there were so many men out there. You were so sure they were all drug-free and disease-free. All had medical certificates. How's that? I held out the letterhead I'd downloaded from the Swingers website. All I had to do was fill out my personal information. I wonder how many people with HIV have been duped this way nowadays. Sandra studied. The form failed again and cried. I'm going to the clinic later today. If I show any signs of venereal disease, I will kill you. Do you understand? Please, God, honey, please kill me now. Please erase my soul and my existence. Free me from this guilt and shame. Please kill me. No, I will not become a pack of hands like you. There is, however, another option. Sandra sat up and looked at me. I don't know if it was hope or despair. I reached behind her back, took her grandfather's revolver, and placed it on the coffee table in front of her. I'm offering you the cowardly way out. I won't kill you, but I'll sit here and watch you kill yourself. Do you have the strength to finish it now, Sandra? Do you really want an easy way out? Sandra stared at the gun for what seemed like hours. I could see the determination on her face. She leaned forward, grabbed the gun, and pressed it to her right temple. Tears flooded her eyes as she looked at me for what she knew must be the last time. Please try to forgive me. I've been so awful to you. Find a way to move on without me. Please, knowing I'm sorry, and I love you. Sandra closed her eyes and pulled the trigger. It wasn't loaded, but since she didn't know that, she pulled the trigger and passed out. I dialed 911. Hello. My wife just tried to shoot herself. The ambulance came very quickly, and since she wasn't physically injured, they took her straight to the psych ward. Her vit was clearly like a madwoman, and I started to get on with my life.